Hey, moms and dads, it's Dr. Scott back here with the last section of our course. And so we want to talk about rules for success during your care plan. And this one's going to be a little bit longer one, but it's because there's a lot of important content that we want to get to here. So let's go ahead and dive right in. First, eating a clean diet is really important during this phase. And so, many of you may already be living this lifestyle. If you are, fantastic, just consider it a reinforcement of what you're doing. If you're not, if this is not what you're eating on a daily basis, then we really need to start looking at how do we get to this? Because we know that nutrition, what we put into our bodies, affects everything. It affects nervous system health. It influences gene expression. It influences immune function. It influences gut health. There's so many different things about this that we really need to make sure that we understand in a major league way. Because having fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and listen, lean proteins can be whatever you eat, right? Some people are vegetarians. As long as you're getting enough of the good quality proteins out there, doesn't really matter what the source is, as long as you're getting plenty of protein. Think about the general ratios on these things. Is you want your diet to be balanced. Essentially 33%, 33%, 33%. If you're getting about 33% of your diet from fats, 33% from proteins, and 33% from carbohydrate sources such as fruits and vegetables, you are pretty much guaranteed to be pretty darn healthy. With the last major component to that being drinking plenty of water. And so moms and dads, that's a big one because I find that a lot of people do not follow this guideline, and chronic dehydration in kids and adults is something that we see all the time. And so when we talk about fluids, right? So caffeinated beverages do not count, whether it's you're drinking pop or your kids drinking pop. Caffeinated beverages, they actually dehydrate you. So drinking clear fluids, nothing added, no carbonation, no sugar, no dyes, really important. So there's a number of different reasons why, but it's a really, really significant thing to keep clear fluids in our diet. Now, fruits, when we look at fruits, we want to look at things like berries. Berries are our best forms of fruits. So using things like apples are fantastic. We want to minimize higher sugar fruits. So having them by themselves is not a good idea. So there'd be things like your bananas, your grapes, your watermelons. If you want to have those, fine. Number one, have them early in the day. And two, have them combined with other fruits such as your berries. Berries, in contrast to bananas and grapes and watermelons. So berries are very low on what's called the glycemic index, which is an important measure of how your body absorbs sugar. The higher the glycemic index of the food, the more that your body is going to absorb, the faster pace that your body is going to absorb those sugars. So fruits in general tend to be a little higher on the glycemic index than vegetables are. Vegetables across the board are mostly and pretty universally low glycemic index. So one of the basic rules is fill up on vegetables. And moms and dads, if you've not tried getting creative with vegetables, there's a lot of things that you can do to make vegetables tasty. The staff here, we can do a ton to try and help you to get down this road, knowing that it's really important that we have the primary bulk of our diet from fruits and vegetables, and then lean protein sources. Now, you notice I didn't put on here like other carbohydrates like breads and grains. They're not as important as having fruits and vegetables. If you want to have them in small quantities. Have a piece of like Ezekiel bread toast in the morning or with a sandwich, but they shouldn't be staples. We should have the majority of our food is fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and then of course healthy fat sources. And healthy fat sources can be seeds, they can be nuts. When you want omega-3 rich nuts like almonds, pistachios, things along that lines, walnuts. All of those things are very dense in omega-3 fatty acids. Pumpkin seeds are very dense in omega-3 fatty acids. So all things that we want to just kind of keep as our basic foundations. There's even a lot of good bars out there that are vegetable bars and fruit bars that are really tasty. Things like Lara bars are fantastic. They're low on the glycemic index, 3 to 4 ingredients per. They're organic and non-GMO, tremendous sources of slow absorbing, low glycemic index carbohydrates. Really tremendous sources. Now, when we look at eating a clean diet, that means that we really want to minimize and ideally eliminate simple sugars, processed foods, right? So if it comes in a box or a can, we really don't want to eat it. We want to keep dyes out. So for those of you who don't know, especially if you have a child with neurodevelopmental challenges, dyes can be very stimulatory to the nervous system. That's why if your kid has a birthday cake, right, there's the normal blood sugar spike. Sometimes it seems like when there's those dyes, it's even worse than normal, because in some research studies, they've shown that things like, red dyes and yellow dyes can really turn up the nervous system to a point where it is on complete and total overdrive. Candy, simple sugars, all of these things, candy, sugary cereal, soda, all of these things have massive blood sugar spiking effects. And so moms and dads, we've all heard of the proverbial blood sugar rush. Well, if you get your sugar rush, what that does is two major things. Is in a child, it is the equivalent of us having like a triple shot of espresso. If you have a child that's trying to sit in school and they've got nothing but high sugar foods that they're digesting, and say breakfast was a big bowl of cereal, nothing else that made it slow down. So they're going to have about a 2-hour window where they're going to be floating high on the sugar, and they're going to crash. Then if they have a sugary lunch, they're going to have a big blood sugar rush for about 2 hours. They're going to be high and they're going to come down. And then by the time you pick them up at the end of the day, they are a crab. And the teacher's like, they were just buzzing all over the place. And one of the big things that will have driven that will have been their imbalance in their blood sugar regulation. Soda and things like that. I mean, soda moms and dads and Gatorade, all of those things are as low quality as you can put into your body. Anytime that you're drinking sugar, there's nothing to slow it down even a little bit. So the blood sugar just instantly spikes. And this creates an increase in stimulation of the nervous system in a bad way. It will weaken immune cells. It will weaken the immune response. It creates cortisol responses, which are stress responses. And over time, it can lead to really significant health issues all the way down the road to things like diabetes, predisposes us to many forms of cancer, because most of these health problems, they are lifestyle related. And so we really want to try and keep the simple sugars at the lowest levels possible in ours and our kids' diets. Now, supplementation, moms and dads, I don't think that it's essential to have tons of supplements in our diet, but there are certain things that we know that are more critical than others. Number one, having hypoallergenic vitamins and minerals in our diet, especially if you have a child that has sensitivities, is really critical. So we look at things like having a good quality, just complex, super bioavailable multivitamin. I tend to be a big fan of Pure Encapsulations. If you're looking for a good multivitamin, let me know. I can send you the link to the dispensary that we use. But Pure Encapsulations is by a long shot the best. They're all hypoallergenic, all the highest bioavailability, and by a long shot the best overall brand on the market. It's the same brand that's used by Cleveland Clinic Functional Medicine and a lot of other healthcare facilities, because it goes to the additional lengths to make sure the product is at a higher standard, so it's better quality when you take it. Vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is something that most people only think of when it comes to bone density. But moms and dads, especially in the area where we live up here in the Cleveland area, most, if not all of us, are vitamin D deficient if we don't take supplemental vitamin D. So if you have a child that's not taking vitamin D, ask the doctors. We'll tell you how much you need. If you're not taking vitamin D, we'll also let you know. Omega-3 fatty acids, also critical. Now, a number of different things relating to omega-3 fatty acids. So omega-3s bring down inflammation in our body. They're a major regulator of the inflammatory response, but they're also really important for nervous system and nerve cell development, especially in kids. And you probably heard the commercials. Omega-3s for brains, omega-3s for brains. Critical to make sure that your kids are on these. If they are not, we also can give you recommendations. And of course, probiotics. And probiotics are a huge one for immune function. So, you probably hear it on TV about helping the gut, easing the gut, but also what you want to understand is probiotics are huge in developing and building a strong immune system. 80% of your immune system lives in the gut. So if you do not have a good, healthy gut biome, you cannot, by the nature of the way that the body works, have a good, strong, healthy immune system. So we want to make sure that we work to balance this out as we go through this process, because your immune system is really critical to be able to go and fight common diseases, viruses, bacteria, fungus, yeast, all these things. And so we want to try and make sure that we're locking down your body so that these things can't have the ability to get in and make you sick. Now, other rules. So here's some really important things when we talk about making sure that we are going to really be successful from the physical aspect. Got to get plenty of exercise. Moms and dads, I hear from you guys all the time that it's so hard to get exercise in. So we'll help you. Big rules. As an adult, minimum of 20 to 30 minutes per day for adults. Kids, at least an hour. Now, moms and dads, I know how difficult it can be to get it in after work. So if you can't get exercise in after work, do it before you go. It's probably going to mean some routine changes, but I will tell you, I do it every day. I'm as busy as anybody out there. I make the time to get up before everyone else in my house gets up so I can get my exercise in. I can tell you it makes all the difference in the world in my quality of life on a daily basis. I get up and I do 30 minutes to an hour of exercise every single day of my life. And I can tell you that it improves mood, well-being, energy, focus, attention, and stress management in ways that if you're not doing this now, you probably can't comprehend it until you start doing this. If you want tips, I've got tons of them. For your family, here's a number of different things that I recommend in terms of forms of exercise. We want to make sure that we are putting in different varieties of exercise so that people don't get bored. So you can do things like yoga. Moms and dads, if you're not doing yoga, try it. If you've done yoga before, but you're like, didn't love it, talk to me. There's a lot of different varieties of yoga out there. I do yoga myself quite a bit. I do a form of yoga that's called Manflow Yoga, created by a guy who's actually a Cleveland native. And it is a calisthenics-based yoga program. So it's more geared towards strength, not as much for mobility, but great program. But there's other ones where it's, there's also strength-based programs that any of us can perform. So I can help you with finding recommendations for those. For kids, man, Cosmic Yoga is awesome. If you've never found Cosmic Yoga on YouTube, look it up for your kids. It's tremendous. Calisthenics, one great thing is that calisthenics does not require you to have anything but your body. And calisthenics can be done anywhere. So that's simply, doing squats and single leg movements and push-ups and pull-ups and, handstands and all kinds of fun varieties of exercise. I started doing calisthenics when I got into my late 30s, early 40s, and it's really been a fun thing learning how to do calisthenics because the variety of things that you can do with calisthenics is never ending. And learning to control your body, really fun. And you know what? There's some great examples of people where that's all they've ever done, like Herschel Walker, who is one of the greatest players ever in the history of the NFL. And all he's ever done in his entire life is calisthenics. And I will guarantee you, moms and dads, in his late 50s, he looks better than just about all of us. Weight training is a traditional staple. If you go to a gym, keep on it. Now, if you are in a weight training program, talk to our doctor staff because we do want to make sure that you are doing all of your exercises safely. Dancing. Dancing can be fantastic. It stimulates the brain in so many different ways because you're moving and you're changing direction and you have to go and synchronize to the beats. So dance with your family. Have dance parties. We just did a video last night talking about this, talking about the importance of movement. But movement is really critical to optimizing brain development, but also optimizing wellness. So getting out and dancing is tremendous. Going for walks with your family. And, walks on unstable surfaces are great too because it challenges your nervous system to have to adapt to those things. And so go for hikes. Going biking is tremendous. Going out running, playing different sports, right? Go out in the backyard and throw around a football, kick around a soccer ball. Go to a Ninja Warrior course or make up your own Ninja Warrior course. Get your kids or yourself into martial arts. I mean, martial arts, I will tell you, developmentally is probably one of the best things that you can do, as is Ninja Warrior, as is swimming. Because when you look at things from a brain development standpoint, the more that we can go cross-body, one side, then the other, opposite arm, opposite leg, the more we can drive the brain to develop through motion that is stimulated from the extremities and the spine. And so if you are trying to rehab yourself, right, physically, right, from an injury, they're also great because they help us to go and put all of our stabilizer muscles to work. And most injuries that we deal with, whether they're spine or extremity related as parents or athletes, they come from imbalances, right? There's obviously the trauma ones, but most overuse injuries are imbalance injuries. So if you're trying to help your child's brain to go and function at its best, this is a tremendous way to make amazing, amazing gains is by getting into these types of exercises and get into a habit of doing something every day. Right? We unfortunately as a population have become far less active than our ancestors. So let's change that. Let's get more active. Let's start really changing the culture and let's get more physically active on a daily basis. And if you have questions or you need variety, you need some guidance, talk to myself, talk to the doctors on the team here. We'll be more than happy to help you. Now, let's talk about posture. So when you look at this image, you see that the spine has a very particular alignment. And so when we talk about posture, when I do a lot of the exams with the kids, I'll make a joke about posture. And I'll talk about how that when we sit up real tall, right, our spine is straight, that our spinal cord is nice and relaxed because our spinal column and spinal cord aren't very stretchy. And that when we flex the spinal column, we come forward and we sit with bad posture, that it actually stretches the spinal column, the spinal cord, and it makes it hard for the brain to talk to the body. Well, I say that as a joke in terms of oftentimes when we talk to the kids to try and get them to understand it at their level, but it's real. When we stretch the spinal cord, it actually makes it very difficult for the signals to be transmitted from the brain to the spinal cord, to the extremities, to the organs, the glands, whatever, and then back up. The more stretch there is in the spinal cord from bad posture, the more that interferes with brain and body communication. So this is a really, really important thing that we think about, because from the perspective of neurodevelopment, communication between the brain and the body is critical. From the perspective of optimum health, it's also really critical. And so here's some examples of what posture should look like. If you're looking at yourself or your child in a seated position or a standing position, this is what it should look like. Most people have the chin jutting, the hunched shoulders, pelvis is either tucked forward and knees bent, or it's the opposite, where the pelvis is really rotated forward with a great big low back curve. What we should see is that straight neck, head over shoulders, feet directly below the hips. That's a really good posture when you're sitting. So imagine that, essentially all you're doing is getting a 90-degree bend to your knees, right? So knees bent 90 degrees, feet on the floor, shoulder width apart, and it'll create a straight spine. So if you have a workstation or your child has a workstation, make sure that it allows for you or them to be in this position at all times, because what it does, it takes pressure off of the spinal cord, but it also allows for proper spinal motion without putting stress in areas unnecessarily. Here's some examples of how not to sit. So when you look at the woman on the left, you see that she's got her legs crossed and she has her spine bent towards the side. And so what that does, that essentially creates a series of curvatures that if she does this all the time, will actually create a scoliosis in her spine. So we advise heavily against sitting that way and looking at more the center position here with the straight spine, feet shoulder width apart instead of this posture. Now, if you have a child, a lot of kids want a W sit. We really want to avoid that. It puts a tremendous amount of stress on the hip sockets and hip joints, but it can also deform the hip. So making sure that we sit in a crisscross applesauce position is a better way to if the kids are going to sit on the floor. So if you see your kid sitting like this, make sure you get them out of that position ASAP, because we do not want that. Making sure the spine is in proper alignment really improves the ability of the brain and the body to work the way that they're supposed to. Chair choices. So here's something that I get a lot of questions about from patients as they start care. I oftentimes will make recommendations for wobble chairs. Now, this is one example, but it can be a physio ball chair. It can be a perch chair. If you're looking for chairs for yourself or for your office or for your kids, talk to myself or the doctor staff. We can give you recommendations on the best chair for you. But the big thing is that you want the chair to be one where you're allowed to move your spine so that it's a little bit unstable, because it keeps the core active. But secondly, you need to have your workstation set up so that your spine can be straight, so that you're not looking down, not twisting, so that when you're sitting there at your workstation for long periods of time, that your spine is not going to be contorted, twisted, or flexed forward, because all of those things will lead to tension on the spine and potentially injury to the spine. And screen time. Last but not least, moms and dads, we need to talk about this because this is a really big, important issue. The World Health Organization is actually so concerned about screen time, they've created a diagnosis for what they call video gaming disorder, right? And you may have heard on the news about things like text neck. So if you look at each one of these pictures, the one major common factor is all of these kids are staring down, 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 down. In this position, many of them for hours at a time looking at iPads, iPhones, video games. The postural component is one piece, and it's a big piece because it can really alter the shape of their spine developmentally, and they need that upright posture of the spine for the brain to work the way that it's supposed to. It's a very bad thing for a child to be in this position for long periods of time. They need to be upright. That's why we talk about exercise, posture, and how critical it is. But the other side of it is from a brain developmental standpoint. When we are doing lots of video gaming, playing lots of YouTube videos, staring at the iPads for long periods of time, what it actually does is it perpetuates the imbalances in ours and our kids' brains. We might love it. It might be fun. But what it does is it drives the left side of the brain in an area that is a focus center, but it's not the focus center that helps us to be productive at school, and it accelerates it. And it makes focus and attention more difficult because now our brain's getting all these little hits of a neurotransmitter called dopamine, makes us feel good, makes us feel happy, but it reinforces accelerating this side of the brain in a bad way. So it actually makes focus and attention harder for kids and adults. You've probably noticed this yourself. If you have a child that gets a lot of screen time, You've probably noticed that, if they're playing video games for a long time or you try and take away the iPad, they probably get pretty upset, right? Or if you have a loved one and you tell them to go and put their phone away, oftentimes it's difficult for them to want to comply. Limiting screen time is huge. WHO's recommendations are no more than 1 hour per day max of screen time. If you have a child, really strongly limit this. And if you have a child that likes to sneak their iPad into bed or they have technology available in bed, get it out of their room. They cannot have these things. It'll interfere with sleep. It'll interfere with the autonomic regulation because it'll drive the fight or flight system. It'll disconnect their brain more than anything else that we can do right now. So this is a big piece of this equation. So moms and dads, we've gone through a lot. You have hopefully learned a lot. We talked about a lot of big topics. I know this isn't everything, but it's the big stuff. And so at this point, we have completed all of the essentials for your family to have success during the course of your care plan. So good job. You've done great work. You've absorbed a lot of information. If you have questions about anything that you've seen on here in any of the modules, talk to the doctor staff. We are more than happy to dig deeper into any of the things that we discussed. If you have some questions about specific resources, whether it's supplements, whether it's postures, whether it's exercise, let us know. We as a doctor team, myself, Dr. Lena, Dr. Brandon, so Jessica, Jonna, Emily, our whole staff here, we are dedicated to making sure that your family gets the most out of the care here at Elite Family Chiropractic. So keep digging in, keep reviewing the modules, ask us questions, and good job. You have completed your new patient mini course at Elite Family Chiropractic. God bless you guys. See you soon.